Hey, this is Sharon Raji Maynard, and this is my new podcast, Gazelles and the Phoenix. So why gazelles and phoenix? Well, there's an old quote that says, I'm going to stop focusing on the dinosaurs. Just let them die. Instead, I'm going to focus on the gazelles. Gazelles are those individual projects and organizations and individuals that are rising up out of the ashes, even before the dinosaurs are gone. So I have had the wonderful experience of meeting a lot of gazelles, being in company of those who are holding space as the phoenix rise from the ashes. So this podcast will be episodes to share with you those individuals, those groups, those ideas. Some of them will come from monthly meetings that are sponsored by the patrons of my other podcast, A Mystic's View. If you're interested in becoming part of that supportive community, go over to patreon.com/A Mystic's View. And there you can get details. We're a growing community. We're committed to a collaborative mindset, and it's a joyful experience. So thank you for those patrons that enable me to do this podcast. And I'm excited to share with you gazelles that are rising up like phoenixes from the ashes. So this is Sharon Raji Maynard, and I'm here with an herbalist today, Julie Charette, Nunn. We're here because of my Patreon sponsors who allow me to do some of the fun things that I like to do, which is interviewing people who have information that I think is well worth sharing out in the world. And I call this series Deep Roots. So you're here because of Patreon sponsors, and I thank them for their support. And so glad I can do this work with you. What we're going to do is just take a moment, because I don't know about you, but I was out in the real world for about 2 hours this morning, which meant I got to see trees that had been absolutely decimated. More cars on the road than I remembered were on the road. And, it was like, oh my gosh, the world is sometimes pretty fast and furious. So let's just take a moment, each of us, to sit quietly in our body. Because of our body suit, we as live beings, soul beings, have the opportunity to be on this planet, to see the trees, to smell the flowers, to taste the food. The body gives us so many opportunities to be able to call forth and to create and to hug and to walk this earth. So just breathe into that body with a sense of gratitude for its presence, yet also permission for it to be healthier every day and show you what it needs for health. We sit always in sacred space. We are here as dots in some kind of grand, intelligent field, way beyond what we know, and we're not alone. And especially as women, our roots go deep within the earth, and those deep roots intertwine with one another, and we support, and we hold, and we bless from that root system as we walk this earth. I am so glad to be with you all today, letting that rootedness that we are, the lightness that we live within, permeate and breathe through us as we share. And this space is prepared for our blessed work today. And so it is. Today, it's our privilege to have with us Julie Charette Nunn, her green witch name Crow's Daughter. She is a shamanic practitioner, a shamanic herbalist, and longtime teacher, herbal crafter, organic gardener, farmer, goat herd, and successful business owner. And I'm proud to say she's right here from where I live in Washington State on Whidbey Island. So I am so pleased to have you with us, Julie, and I know our listeners are going to love and be impressed and inspired by what you have to share. So the floor is now yours.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. And I was thinking about what you were saying in your prayer, and I'm going to share a lot about my practice with the plants and my shamanic herbalism practice with the plants. But one of the things that was sparked when you were saying your prayer was that this idea of, being in the world and having all these distractions or sort of intense experiences and a way to drop, outside of that could be just to go outside where we live. I feel like we can be better stewards for the earth when we understand the earth better, when we understand what she has for us and what she is asking of us, which is a little different than the idea that we can heal the earth or we can do all this stuff to the earth and change it. But what does the earth have for us? And how can we work in relationship with the earth? And my way of doing that is with the plants. And because of doing that with the plants, everything else comes into play. I mean, really, it does, because of the consciousness of life is really that rootedness that you were talking about. So one of the things that's happening right now is, we just had the new moon, and let me just backtrack a little bit. I will share about my practices with the plants, and then people may have some questions about how I'm doing things or what I'm doing, but I really wanted to really go into this place of what people could do that are listening to this that would inspire them to begin right now or to deepen right now. So the new moon, we just had this wonderful new moon, which is very quiet energy, inward energy, and we have the Mercury in retrograde experience going on. And so this Mercury in retrograde, if people don't know, it's like things appear to go backwards. And, it's said that you can backtrack some ways that you've been and bring attention to some things that you may have overlooked. And so an exercise you can do during this time, in the next couple of weeks, is that you can go out on the land and you can breathe and just walk and breathe and listen and be able to bring the energy of dreaming and remembering, just because it's this time of year when things are just starting to emerge. The green is just starting to emerge. And so allow time for that. It's very simple. And I wanted to share with you what happened for me. On Sunday, I did this with my apprentices, and we were out walking. And of course, as I'm walking around, I'm seeing all these projects that need to be done. Like, I'm going to do that this year, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to prune this, and and then all of a sudden I kind of dropped down below that, and I realized that the land is restoring me to who I am. And the land is this place where I live is where I belong. And I spent a lot of time outside here. And one of the things that I have sort of danced with in being a Whidbey Island person is sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish I had more community. Because when I lived in Seattle, I had more community of people around me. But I realized that I belong here, I belong here on the land. And so what I got from this walk was that it's very interesting. What I think I want isn't always what is required by me to do. What my fantasy of what my life should be like isn't really the authenticity of me and who I am. And by being outside and being quiet and spending time outside, I have started to realize who I really am. And
Julie, I want you to say that all over again, like who I think I am. Start at that point.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so worth pondering. Can you do that one more time? It was an important point.
Who I think I am, I'm finding out who I think I am is not always who I want to be. And what the land is doing, it's restoring me to the authenticity of who I am. And it's not that it's like sometimes it's challenging because it's not a conditioning that I've had. Like, oh, you should do this, or oh, things should look like this. Things should be like this in your life. But here's what we're handing you with life. Here's who you are. And to actually start to drop into that place, it's quite amazing. It's quite amazing, actually. Yeah. Yeah. So right now on the land, the stinging nettle is emerging. And I actually brought a little bit of, I don't know if you can, it's sort of hard to see here, but I had some dried nettle. I just brought a little prop because I'm not outside pointing this out to you in my little red basket here that I've dried. Just a little bit that I harvested. I picked some nettle and I made some French onion soup over the weekend, and I cut up the nettle, the very young spring nettle, and I put it in the soup, and it was quite amazing. So I wanted to talk about nettle. And there's 3 plants. I don't know if we have time for all of this, but there's 3 plants, the nettle, the dandelion, and the wild roses. And those are the plants that were called to me to share with today. Nettle is the reason I'm an herbalist. So about 25 years ago, I was a school teacher, and I was working at a school in South Seattle, a school for homeless children, in a little classroom in the central area. And I was mostly content to do the work, but I started studying the Weisman tradition, and I started making nettle infusion and bringing it to school with me and drinking it. And all of a sudden, I started looking outside my window, and I had to pull myself back and go, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing. I thought, I wonder what plants are growing out there. And I started dreaming about being outside. And what was happening was nettle activated a cellular memory in me that I'm an herbalist. Nettle started to change me. And strangely enough, the crows would come and sit on the fence outside my classroom and looking at me. And I'm like, what? What do you want? Anyway, by the end of that year, I quit my job. And I decided I'm on the path with the plants. So nettle is the herb of change. You can go outside where the nettle grows and breathe with the nettle. And this is an exercise I'm going to explain that you can do with any plant. Go to where the nettle grows and stand